Hi there, Allison here with another Cab Franc du jour. Today we are in Canada and more specifically Ontario and the Niagara Peninsula, and we're looking at the Leaning Post 2017 Cab Franc. Leaning Post was established in 2009 by husband and wife team Ilya and Nadia Senchuk. Ilya was winemaker at a number of different wineries across the Niagara Peninsula over the course of 12 years before starting Leaning Post. He has a really great sense of terroir and knows how to communicate a site through his wines. And he does this with a number of different grape varieties, from Chard to Pinot, Riesling, and of course today we are looking at his Cab Franc. So the fruit for this wine is coming from the Foxcroft Vineyard, which is in the VQA 20-mile bench sub-appellation. So we're situated here on the Niagara Escarpment, and we have Lake Ontario to the north and the Niagara Escarpment to the south. And the soils were formed here around 12,000 years ago after the last ice age, when the glaciers receded. And this Niagara Escarpment that I keep referring to is kind of like a ridge, if you will, and it represents the historic shoreline of this ancient Lake Iroquois that existed here before Lake Ontario. Now, the Foxcroft Vineyard, it's owned and managed by the Wismer family, and it's located on what we refer to as the Vineland Bench. And this bench is sort of one of a series of many benches or steps or terraces, if you will, that make up this Lake Iroquois bench that stretches the entire length of the Niagara Peninsula. These terraces range in width from anywhere from a few hundred meters to upwards to 2 kilometers, and they basically kind of step downward towards Lake Ontario. So where Foxcroft is situated, we're kind of on the second step, if you will, up from the lake. And the subsoils here are a dolomitic and argillaceous limestone mixed with sandstone. And then we have a topsoil of clay loam till, which is of glacial origin. So the till is kind of like a mix of sand, silt, and gravel, and then mixed with the clay. This is a really top site, certainly one that should be on your radar if you love wines from Ontario. A number of different grape varieties are planted here, and the Cab Franc block, this was planted in 1997. There's 9 acres of Cab Franc here, so that's 3.5 hectares. It's all the clone 327, that's the Bordeaux clone, and we're situated here at a moderate elevation of around 135 or so meters above sea level, and we're sloping gently towards Lake Ontario to the north. This wine was vinified in smaller kind of open top fermenters, I believe, and aged in French and American oak barrels for about 20 months. There is a good portion of new here, 40% new barrels. The nose immediately has more of a red fruit profile, so I'm getting a lot of sort of raspberry notes. There's some sour cherry notes, but it kind of is a mix of sweet and tart fruits. Getting even a little bit of plum here too, which is nice, like a red plum. And it does have a nice savory undertone to it. So there's a nice balance of pyrazines, and I'm getting like a little bit of kind of thyme notes, some mossiness. And there's a really lovely floral element to this wine too, which I quite like. It almost reminds me of lilacs. And there is a touch of an oak presence on the nose, like a touch of like a clove note, maybe even some dill here too. And this wine is really opening up nicely. Those red fruits carry through beautifully on the palate. The oak is nicely integrated here. There's no like hard edges at all whatsoever. The acidity, bright, vivacious, really mouth-watering, and the tannins are really, really tightly knit, very fine, almost chalky tannins in the mouth. You can really sense that there is some sort of like stone something going on in this vineyard, because there's this real sense of tension in terms of how the tannins feel in the mouth. Yeah. Lean, it's well defined, it has this svelte kind of profile to it, but it's a really, you can sense that there's great terroir here underneath the wine. And I have a few other wines that come from this site that I'm going to taste later, so I'll be very curious to see sort of how the terroir comes through. If you have a favorite Cab Franc from Ontario, let me know what you think of it in the comments below. And of course, as always, I will be back again soon with another wine. Cheers.